Game is over, and now it's time to break down another showdown for Kyle Whittingham and the Utes.
Go! Quickly to the line of scrimmage, first down and goal at the 1. Dickey in the backfield. They give it to him straight ahead. Touchdown, Red Raiders. 2nd and 5 at the 25. Morton will throw it. Sideline throw. Intercepted in the end zone. Jackson Benny. Dampier in trouble. Dampier's got to get it away. Reverses, uses his feline quickness. Dampier sets. Threw it into double coverage. That is picked off. Wow, Bryce Pollock. Utah cobbling together a drive. They'll go quickly. 2nd and 1. At the 5. Handoff. Parker. Touchdown, Utah. First down at the 24. And wide open. Touchdown. Terrence Carter Jr. winning the whip. Does it again. Dickey keeps going. Outside. Sideline. Touchdown. Texas Tech. Cameron Dickey. 24 yards. Backbreaker.
This is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
(34-10), Utah loses to Texas Tech. I'm Christian Esparza Alex Napoles, with me, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. Join us as we break down Utah's first loss of the season, and of course, the conference opener against Texas Tech at home. Initial thoughts, Alex?
Oh man, where do I start?
A lot of thoughts, right?
Where do I begin? I mean, credit to Texas Tech. That defense is a lot better than I think I think that we thought going into this one, and Utah offensively really struggled.
And that's putting it mildly. I don't think anybody was expecting Utah's offense to look this bad today. Texas Tech has not been known for their defense, and we know the storyline, right? We know they threw a bunch of money in the transfer portal, brought over a ton of transfers at every position group. But at the end of the day, it was like, it's still Texas Tech, and their defense can't possibly be that good. And I guess now the question is Texas Tech's defense that good, or is Utah's offense going to have another long year? Because what we saw today was bad. It was bad from the start. And yeah. I don't know, the Fox broadcast team was talking about Dampier potentially having an apparent ankle injury that he allegedly suffered against Wyoming last week. And I don't know, might have some controversy there because that was not on any of the availability reports that we saw throughout the week. So that is going to be something to monitor, whether or not that was true. But the Fox broadcast crew did say it, so we will see. Right. But let us know your thoughts. Again, we are live, YouTube, Facebook, X. Can't take phone calls through this format, but I'm sure you have thoughts, all you Ute fans. So please chime in the comment section. Let us know, and we will get through everything because a lot of things to break down after this.
And of course, we got to start with the offensive struggles for Utah, right? First and foremost, ball security. Ball security struggled in that first half, right? You had the fumble from Dampier, you had the fumble from Wayshawn Parker, and then of course, no help in the turnover department as well, as Devin Dampier throws for 2 INTs in this one. One late in garbage time, but one, 2 turnovers for Devin Dampier.
And there was a fumble last week. Remember, Nate Johnson lost a fumble against Wyoming. So that is 3 lost fumbles in the last 2 weeks for Utah. And I know that just has Kyle Whittingham tearing his hair out, because that is just, it's like the worst way I would think to kill a drive, because sometimes, at least with an interception, you can pin the defense deep. If you're throwing a deep ball and it's picked off, whatever, it's kind of like a punt. Losing those fumbles, man, especially early on in the game when you're trying to build momentum, when you're trying to get downfield and really start the game off strong, and then you fumble 2 possessions in the first half, drive killers, and that's just tough. And then, of course, again, more penalties today, an illegal man downfield on what would have been a beautiful touchdown throw to Jackson Benny. But that's where I want to go with, there was that nice pass to Benny, but other than that, Dampier was just off today. And we had seen in the first 3 games some beautiful passes from Dampier. We had also seen some pretty off misses. And today, Alex, Devin Dampier was just all over the field. The one, obviously, that was the most egregious was the wide open Tobias Merriweather. And Devin Dampier is out of the left side of the pocket, and he's still running while he throws the ball. Dude, you've got to set your feet and get that pass right, because if you do, that's a touchdown. And you're down in the third quarter. You need a touchdown there, and he just sails it over Merriweather's head.
And I think miscues like that were happening for a large majority of this game. And I think at some point it seemed as though Devin Dampier, they had him a little bit rattled, man. And I think that comes with not being able to move the ball downfield, right? You get, especially in that second quarter, it felt like Utah was going nowhere anytime that they had possession. In the third quarter as well, and it seemed as though Devin Dampier was trying to force things. He was a bit rattled and trying to get this offense going. And that, I think, ultimately leads to a lot of miscues in the passing game. The final stat line for Devin Dampier tonight in this one, 25 throws on 38 attempts.
Yeah, 162 yards and then 2 INTs there. You brought up the 2 interceptions. And yeah, the one was in garbage time, but it was still a bad play. And it's like,
yes,
even if it's in garbage time, you still have a chance to get down the field and put up points. So, the touchdown interception ratio was a huge storyline coming in, and Dampier had not thrown any interceptions coming into this game. And then 2 ugly ones today. Again, the first one was particularly bad. Again, not on the same page with his receiver, sailed it over his head right into the safety's hands. So the offense just could not do anything today. And even on the ground, Dampier had 11 carries for 27 yards. That's 2.5 per. The leading rusher on the day, Nakari Rogers, had 37 yards on 10 carries. Easy math there. But again, just it seemed like the offensive line today that everybody had really been touting as one of the best in the conference, one of the potentially best in the country, seemed like they couldn't get a push. It is so reminiscent of last year's offense where they just could not do it. Right. It's worrying, to be frank with you, Alex, because this was supposed to be different with Jason Beck coming in, with Devin Dampier coming in. It was supposed to fix everything. And in their first real test of the season, in their first conference game, admittedly against a great opponent in Texas Tech, they're going to be top 10 in the next ranking, right? I would assume. They just fall flat on their face offensively and can't do anything. 10 points, not going to cut it ever.
You talk about the push on the offensive line, and I think a lot of credit goes to number 2, Lee Hunter, on that Texas Tech defensive line, man. He wouldn't allow any type of push from that Utah offensive line, which, again, uncharacteristic to see that tonight or today for Utah, considering the fact that the offensive line was getting insane pushes and really getting that running game going over the course of the last couple of weeks. And tonight, Lee Hunter just stood up and played a big part as to why I don't think Utah was able to get really anything going in the rushing game. We talked about in the pregame show, right, or on College Football Saturday. This is a Utah team who was averaging 290 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
You only get 101.
On 31 carries, I think, is the most worrying part. It's not like they weren't trying to run the ball. 31 carries is a ton, and compare that to 38 passing attempts. So that is dang near 50-50. And to only barely crack 100 yards on 31 carries is pretty poor. And then your longest carry of the day, that was Nakari Rogers with 8. No explosiveness on the ground game whatsoever.
Yeah. You just the inability to move the ball downfield. I think overall is a massive, massive storyline for Utah in this one. you only average 3.3 yards on the ground, and then you only average 4.3 yards through the air. We saw how many drives for Utah stalled out. I think this is the most we've seen Orion Phillips come out to punt balls away for Utah all season long. 7 punts in total for Utah. And again, just not something that we were used to seeing from that win against Wyoming. Obviously, we didn't see it against Cal Poly. And then you didn't really see it against UCLA. It's like a night and day difference from the offense that you saw tonight versus the offense that you saw in the first 3 games.
Completely different. And do you think there's anything to the fact that, this was Devin Dampier's first Big 12 test? And not only that, again, this is probably going to be one of the best teams in the Big 12. So do you think that some of it was maybe Devin Dampier facing one of the best teams he's ever faced as a football player? Or do you think that this is, are you worried at all that this is going to stick around all season?
No, it very well could be just the fact that this was Devin Dampier's first Power 4 test. And playing, I guess, with Utah and playing this kind of an off or defense that's this great. I know they've had the UCLA game, but the UCLA defense and the Texas difference, we saw it today, completely different levels. And like I said, at times it seemed like they had him a little bit rattled and a little bit shaken as he was trying to force the ball downfield. He was trying to make something happen, and he just ultimately couldn't get anything going.
No, and again, a lot of missed throws. And that, I think, is pretty worrying to me because there were times where they could have capitalized on open receivers, or at least if they weren't open, they were open enough.
The big one that sticks out is Tobias Merriweather.
Yeah,
right?
that one was bad.
That's probably the biggest one that sticks out in my mind is that overthrow to Tobias. You have to connect on those plays, right? You're down. It's third quarter. He's wide open. You have to connect on those plays because ultimately, right, you connect on that play. There's plenty of green grass in front of Tobias Merriweather, and that's probably the spark that this offense needed and a spark that offense could have used in that moment. But instead, it falls incomplete. You have to punt it away and give the ball back to Texas Tech.
Yeah, a lot of punting tonight from Utah. I think we've got some BYU fans in the chat chiming in, letting their thoughts be known. But Devin Dampier was the real struggle today. And, I hate to put a lot of the blame on one player, but that's what the quarterback is, right? The most important position. And it just seemed like he could not hit his guys. And another thing that really stood out to me, Alex, with Dampier and with this passing game, obviously we know that his size is not great, right? Sub 6 feet. The number is debatable, whether you want to call it 5'10", whatever. That really stood out today because he cannot stand back, drop back in the pocket and pass. It seemed like a lot of the times when they were trying to develop a pass play, it's a shotgun pass and Dampier sprints out to the right side of the pocket. And that can work sometimes, especially with how mobile Dampier is. But 2 things there. Number one, again, the alleged ankle injury that he suffered last week. We'll see if Whittingham is asked about that in the post game. I don't know. But the real problem with that, with all these rollouts and sprint outs, that cuts the field in half. If your quarterback is running to the right side of the pocket, if he has to get out of the pocket to make a pass, you are splitting the field in half. And that really limits what you can do, especially for a spread offense that's supposed to spread the defense out throughout the field and find open space and green grass and all of that stuff. When you've got a quarterback who can't sit back in the pocket and make plays, you got to cut the field in half like that. It really limits what you can do. And I don't know. There is a lot to break down because this offense looked clunky. Would be, best case scenario to describe this, right? This offense was very, very poor today, and there were a lot of reasons why.
You talk about rolling out, and I feel like that played a big part of the interception. Credit to Texas Tech's defense for clamping down on the side of the field that Devin Dampier was able to escape to. In those situations, you can't force it, right? Because you're just going to throw it into that triple coverage, and it's going to get picked off. We saw in that third quarter, and again at that point, it seemed like the confidence of this Utah offense at that point was low. Devin Dampier again trying to make something happen. And then I think that ultimately led to that INT.
Yeah, and they did put together a touchdown drive to start the fourth quarter, and that was very encouraging. And that did feel like, man, that they're back in the game now, right? They cut the deficit to 1 score, and the thought was that, okay, it's a game. They changed a lot on that touchdown drive. They went more up tempo. They played a lot quicker. Of course, with the way Whittingham likes to play this defense, it's hard to do that throughout a full game. So there were some adjustments there that led to points being on the board. But the other big worry, Alex, is you let a backup quarterback come in and shred you. And I know that we were sticking with the offense this segment, but we got to talk about the defense. Will Hammond coming in, I don't know if he's a stud or if this defense just could not rise to the occasion today. But of course, we all know Baron Morton left the game, third quarter, apparent head injury. Will Hammond comes in 13 of 16, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also shreds Utah on the ground, 8 carries for 61 yards. So, offensive struggles are one thing, but you cannot struggle on defense to a backup quarterback if you're the Utah Utes.
Yeah. And ultimately, in that situation too, I think it also comes down to the inability to get your offense off the field, right? The inability to have sustained drives on offense to keep possession, to keep the time of possession on and keep your offense on the field, right? And you have to allow your defense and leave your defense out on the field longer than they probably should have. And I think, I think that's kind of what you attribute to that big fourth quarter jump from Texas Tech, is the fact that Hammond was at that point, the defense was huffing and puffing. Utah couldn't get their defense off the field, and Hammond did a phenomenal job of taking advantage of what seemed at that point a tired defense with how much time they were on the field, man.
And that drive was just the complete nail in the coffin. As I mentioned, Utah got the touchdown, made it 13-10, and it really felt like, okay, Utes have a chance here. Okay, they have a chance to make this a real football game. And then Hammond starts Tech's next drive off with a 32-yard run. Man coverage, and he just escapes the pocket, made some dudes miss, broke some tackles. And then, of course, so the 32-yard run on that drive, and then a 19-yard pass and a 24-yard pass. So just big chunk plays that, you can live with giving up a couple chunk plays a game, but to have 3 essential chunk plays on one drive, it's crazy.
That drive felt like the backbreaker, right? As soon as Will Hammond comes onto the field and goes off for the big run, and then is able to get off those chunk plays, and then the ball ends up, in the end zone for the Texas Tech touchdown. It felt like at that point that was the backbreaker for Utah.
T-Pant chiming in. Will Hammond is a stud. He was a blue chip recruit, redshirt freshman, played great last year against TCU. Dude can sling it. So, it was a pretty apparent. He looked good today. That still, I don't think that's an excuse for Utah's defense. Utah's defense is good enough that they should be, they shouldn't be getting shredded by most quarterbacks, much less a redshirt freshman with barely any experience. I get that he was a highly touted recruit, but this defense, man, allowed too many big plays. And they made some big plays early in the first half. Again, this is kind of reminiscent of what we saw last year. The defense showed up at times, but when the offense can't do anything, the defense runs out of juice. Taylor Johnson's interception was nice. And then, of course, Jackson Benny getting a pick in his 3rd straight game, 3 straight games with an interception for Benny. And then Nate Ritchie made some nice tackles in the backfield, 2.5 tackles for a loss. So good plays on the defensive side, but it doesn't matter if you're giving up big plays.
Right. And I think for the most part, that defense played well for the up until that fourth quarter. The defense was making plays, man, and I think the reason why you even have a chance to entering that fourth quarter is because of the effort that was put up by the defense. Like you mentioned, the turnovers, Teo Johnson coming up with the INT, Jackson Benny coming up with the INT, the defense too, and then of course you have the penalties, right? Massive credit to the Muss and Rice Eccles Stadium. The crowd brought the energy. What was it? 8 false starts, I think, at the end of it. And so the defense, I think, ultimately gave you the shot that you needed, right? Utah's offense came out onto the field, plenty of times in that third quarter to try to make something happen thanks to the defensive efforts from Utah and that Utah defense. But ultimately, Utah's not able to cash in, and Utah isn't able to move the ball. And again, it's a bend don't break mentality, but at some point you're going to break. And we saw Utah break in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, the must was definitely Utah's MVP tonight. That was pretty apparent. Forcing the false starts. Texas Tech was having real trouble with their snap count, whether they were trying to do the clap or whatever. A lot of issues there, and that was credit to the musts and, just the crowd in general waking up and being there for the 10 a.m. kickoff. And it was great in the moment, but looking back, it's like, man, that it just feels like such a failed opportunity because all eyes in the country were on this game. And, national people tune in and they see Utah lay an egg, and it's like, oh, same Utah from the past couple of years, right? So that is really unfortunate.
I feel like that's going to be the feeling as Utah heads into now West Virginia. It feels like that's going to be the feeling, at least from the national writers and the national side of things. You get this game on big noon. You have a big opportunity to showcase your Utah's back, right? You have a big opportunity to showcase this offense, to showcase this team, to showcase this brand, and ultimately, Texas Tech brought it, man.
Yeah. Got some people chiming in. Joe Holy. I'm just going to say it. Witt is 2-4 when big time shows come to town and the team is the nation's focus for the week. BYU in 05 and Cal with Jared Goff. Yeah, I don't know whose fault it is. I don't know if it's Whittingham's fault in particular. I don't know if it's, maybe Jason Beck just didn't have the right plays dialed up. Maybe the player's execution wasn't there. But the fact of the matter is, all we can focus on is this game today. Yep. And Utah just didn't have it. Tech showed up and Utah didn't.
A lot of comments online in regards to Utah's play selection. Christian, any thoughts on, you have to, I understand trying to get, short yardage plays and trying to build up some confidence in that offense. But at some point you got to mix things up and you got to try something new. And it felt like we were seeing the same looks from Utah, especially in that third quarter. And again, it ultimately was leading to stalled out drives and having to punt it away.
I think the biggest thing, it actually was a pretty aggressive game plan today. I know there were specific play calls like in the moment.
Yeah.
One that I'm thinking of off the top of my head, there was like a screen to a backup tight end, a tight end screen.
Yeah. When you were backed up on your own 1 yard line.
What are you doing there? But then for the majority of the game, it really did feel like an aggressive game plan from Jason Beck. The problem was Dampier was just missing guys. There were so many 2nd and 10s that turned into 3rd and 10s because Dampier missed the receivers. And a lot of those were on, 12, 15-yard passes. And I don't know what it was today, but Dampier was just off. And we had seen him miss some receivers in the first 3 weeks. We'd also seen him hit some receivers and make some really nice plays, some really nice throws. So it was just an off day for Devin Dampier, and I think ultimately that's what it boils down to. And again, I don't want to put all the blame on him because the offensive line could not get a push in the run game, so it's hard to pass the ball when you can't run the ball, and it's hard to run the ball when you can't pass the ball.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is Dampier had a lot of opportunities tonight, or I should say this morning, to hit his receivers and make plays, and the ball was sailed more often than not.
And I think that's ultimately what's going to be one of the things that sticks out the most when looking at why this Utah offense just couldn't get things rolling right. It's going to be the miscues. It's going to be the missed passes. And of course, not being able to establish yourself in the run. I felt very confident coming into this one that Nakari Rogers and Wayshawn Parker were going to continue to have, excellent opportunities running out of the backfield. But again, credit to that defensive front for Texas Tech, man. It was as advertised, right? I think coming into this game tonight, they were the number 3 according to PFF, and they showed it.
Got some comments chiming in. Again, we are live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on X at KSL Sports across all these platforms. We're also live 97.5 and 1280 The Zone. Miss Pink Girl chiming in. She had a few comments. But ultimately, I want to focus on this one, Alex, because I do think it's a question a lot of people are asking. She said, do you think we need a different quarterback? And I want to address that because, of course, a lot of this segment we have spent talking about Devin Dampier and the missed throws. I don't think it's as drastic as needing a different quarterback. And I do want to stress that it is one game.
Yeah.
It is one bad game, and you don't want to hit the panic button after one bad game. So as much as this sucks, as much as this probably hurts for Ute fans to digest, to have all the festivities in town, to have all the eyes on your team, as much as people are probably going to talk about it for a few weeks, the reality is there is still 8 more conference games left to go, right? There is still plenty of a chance for Utah to even make the Big 12 championship, okay? No matter who is in that game at the end of the year, they're going to have 1 or 2 losses. So Utah still has a chance to turn things around and figure out what works for Devin Dampier. I don't want to press the panic button yet. Not even close to thinking about a quarterback change yet. But Dampier does have to be better. I think both of those things can be true.
Yeah, I think we're still a ways away from pushing the panic button.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Devin Dampier. We'll keep that question in our back pocket though, and see what happens next week against West Virginia. But like you mentioned, and I think we talked about this too earlier this morning on the College Football Saturday show, is the fact that you get this game early. It's the first conference game of the season, obviously, for both of these sides. The good news, I think, for Utah, and one of the positives I think you can take away from this loss is the fact that the season is far from over. There's still plenty of football left to be played. Like you mentioned, there's going to be a multiple loss team probably in that Big 12 championship game. If the conference is anything like we saw last year, right? There's still plenty of opportunities for Utah to kind of make up ground. You lose this game early, yes, you're going to fall down to the polls. You're going to be down 0-1 to start conference play, but the good news is I think you can make up that ground as the season goes on.
The other thing that's a reality too, talking about other quarterback options, which again, I want to stress, I'm not even ready to think about that, but the other 2 options are Bird Ficklin and Isaac Wilson, right? Yep. A true freshman and then a redshirt freshman who was very bad last year. So it's not like you're even comfortable in either of those 2 guys. Obviously, Texas Tech and their backup quarterback situation, it's like, yeah, we don't care who goes out there. He's going to sling it. Utah's not in the same boat. And I don't think that Ficklin or Wilson would have looked any better than Devin Dampier tonight. So it's a tough game. Texas Tech is a good opponent. And I think that's, again, what that boils down to. Like, this is the best team that Utah is going to face all year.
Yeah.
They'd like to get a rematch in the Big 12 championship. I think Whittingham would like another shot at these guys. But unfortunately, today just weren't up to the challenge.
I 100% agree. But again, you'll have that opportunity to make up that ground as the season goes on. This is probably the best defense in the Big 12 when it comes to Texas Tech. I think they showed it tonight. Money can buy you a good roster. Money can buy you a good defense, and they proved it.
Yeah, we'll see. More to break down. Still got a lot to say. Also waiting on post-game availability. Hoping to hear from Kyle Whittingham and some players. Again, the Fox broadcast kept mentioning an apparent ankle injury to Devin Dampier, so we will see if anything gets revealed there, because that did not show up on any player availability reports. So that was interesting. And if it's true, it definitely looked like it was holding him back tonight. We'll see if any of that gets revealed in the post-game pressers. But we got to take a break. Stick with us. It's the Ute post-game show. Be back in about 3 minutes. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ute Postgame Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza Alex Napoles with me. Join us as we break down Utah's 34-10 loss to Texas Tech. Welcoming in, of course, the number 17 team in the country. Couldn't get it done today. Last segment, Alex, we spent a lot of time talking about the offensive struggles. Defense had their share of struggles as well. I realized that Hammond was a highly touted prospect, but the fact of the matter is he's the backup quarterback, and it just seemed like he was able to take advantage of a lot of blown coverages by Utah, and that's worrying because that's an issue we saw pop up in the first 3 weeks. The opposing quarterbacks just hadn't been able to take advantage of that yet, but Hammond did. He hit his open receivers, and they scored touchdowns.
Right, and that's something that I think we talked about in the last postgame show against Wyoming, right, is the fact that once you get into Big 12 play and once you face these offenses, those offenses will and are going to make you pay. And I think you got a taste of that tonight. I think Texas Tech took advantage of that. Hammond with some phenomenal dimes downfield. Give him credit for that, but Utah got beat, and especially breaking in that fourth quarter.
I think that's probably what it was breaking, right? Because it didn't seem like Utah was giving up very many big plays in the first half, especially probably through the first three quarters even. But again, when your offense can't produce, can't do anything, they have to punt the ball 7 times. Your defense is out on the field for the majority of the game. I mean, you are just gassed, and eventually that leads to giving up big plays. And that's ultimately what we saw tonight. It's uncharacteristic for Utah's defense to give up that many big plays, but tonight they did.
I think for a large majority of 3 quarters, Utah's defense played a great game. Got some pressure on Baron Morton. Did good at getting to the quarterback. Obviously, putting him in uncomfortable situations. There was times too where Texas Tech, they would get a couple, they'd get first downs, but then ultimately they'd have to give the ball back to Utah. And again, the defense doing their jobs to put the offense, give the ball back to their offense and try to find those opportunities to go down, score the touchdown to tie things up. But ultimately Utah can move the ball. You bring your defense back in, and then kind of this repeating cycle until ultimately, bend don't break mentality, but you break. And it's crazy. I look at the final score, right? It's 34-10 final score. But at one point in that fourth quarter, Christian, it was 13-10.
Yeah. Utah got that touchdown. And like I said before, it felt like it was a game after Utah got that touchdown, but it was literally the next drive when Tech got the ball back. And they, not only did they march down the field and score, but they put up, it was a 30-something yard run, a 19-yard pass, and then a 24-yard pass. So, it's giving up big plays at the most inopportune times. And again, a lot of that comes from the fact that the offense just wasn't doing any favors.
Absolutely not. And looking at some of the final stats here for Will Hammond, the freshman quarterback who came in and replaced Baron Morton after that injury, finished 13 for 16 on the day, 169 yards, had the 2 touchdowns to the air. Hammond also with 8 carries, 61 yards. Yeah. And that's probably what stands out the most to me. There was the design QB runs and allowing Will Hammond to kind of take it up with his feet. That brought some juice to that Texas Tech offense, and they used that to carry them into the end zone, especially in that fourth quarter.
Obviously you're not going to spend a ton of time preparing for the backup quarterback, right? But when the change had to be made, it just felt like Utah's defense wasn't ready. And I don't know what the problems were or what the problem was, but it definitely seemed like Hammond was able to do whatever he wanted. I mean, he barely 10 of 13, right? That's barely missing any throw, or 13 of his 16, barely missing any throws there. The third down disparity was pretty bad tonight.
Yes.
Texas Tech, 9 of 17. That's just barely over 50%. That's an incredible number. Utah, 4 of 14 on third down. And again, a lot of those were in third and long because your quarterback is missing throws on 2nd and 10. That puts you in a bad spot. You also struggle to run the ball at all. So you're facing a lot of long third down situations. So that's why that number is so low. And conversely, on the flip side, you're giving up 9 of 17 on third down to Texas Tech. And that's not good for Utah's defense either, because even the 34 points, you could say, okay, a lot of those points came in the garbage time. Not all of those third down conversions came in the garbage time. So I think defensively, that's probably the biggest point of emphasis, because, you're not always going to control how well the offense plays, but you can control how well you play on third down. So I would say that's probably my biggest worry for this Utah defense, is just the inability to get off the field on third down.
And then, of course, giving up 484 yards in total offense to Texas Tech. Big number compared to what we've seen the last 3 weeks from Utah. I thought the unfortunate thing is I think that Utah did a good job on Barrett Morton, and they had a good game plan for Barrett Morton, right? He gets the big play on the first drive, right? They score, they punch it into the end zone, it's 7-0. But then after that, I thought Utah did a good job of slowing down Barrett Morton, right? They didn't allow him to get as many big chunk plays, and they did a good job picking him off, right? The 2 interceptions came when Barrett Morton, of course, was still in at quarterback. Good game plan for Barrett Morton, but again, Will Hammond came in, kind of changed the complexity of the game, kind of changed the rhythm of that offense, and gave Texas Tech the juice and the confidence to for Will Hammond to do what he did to Utah's defense in that second half.
Yeah, he was just all over. Defensively, you still had John Henry Daly show up and get a sack, and we saw, again, I mentioned Nate Ritchie making the start in place of Rabbit Evans. He was in the backfield a couple times, had some tackles for loss. We also saw Ritchie getting picked on. I know he had a pass defended, but there were several passes where, frankly, they were bad decisions by the Tech quarterback throwing it to a contested receiver, but the receivers were able to get up and make a play and beat Utah's DBs. I mean, there were a lot of contested catches in this game. There was one on the boundary. There was one over the middle where, the DB tried to get up and swat at the hands, and Tech's receivers were just better today. They were beating Utah's guys on the jump balls. So, I don't know what it was with Hammond, but it really seemed like he could do whatever he wanted.
Yeah. When it comes to, looking at both of these offenses, I think what sticks out to me is you look at we talk a lot about chunk plays and Utah needing more chunk plays, needing more electricity, needing something on that offense, right? You look at the big plays for Utah receiving core in this game, right? You have Bentley, who obviously goes for 44, which is great. But then after that, your biggest passing play of the night was to Ryan Davis for just 12. You look on the contrary, right? You look at the other side of Texas Tech. Virgil had a pass of 21 yards. Williams caught a pass of 73 yards. Douglas took one for 33. Carter took one for 24. Chunk plays, man, big plays. And I think that's a reflection again of Utah's defense ultimately breaking.
Yeah, Bentley had a nice catch and run. I think it was a longer play. Frankly, if he was faster, he would have scored because he got caught from behind. And again, I think that was on that touchdown drive where Utah ended up coming away with 7 there. But you're right, Alex, as far as getting the ball down the field, that was the missed opportunity for Utah's offense tonight, because the ball was just all over the place. The placement was not good. There were a lot of missed chunk plays. And, if you can't run the ball, your last bet is to try and make plays through the air. And Utah was just not able to do that tonight. So that you couldn't even call them one-dimensional. It was a zero-dimensional offense tonight from the Utah Utes. Like it's just crazy, because it's the exact same thing that we saw last year, and we thought it was different. And I get that Tech is a good opponent. I get that this is the best team they've faced all year. I get that this is probably the best team that they're going to face. But it really does feel a little crushing to look the exact same that you did last year. Like literally nothing changed. The defense made a few good plays, but ultimately they end up breaking at the end because the offense can't put up any points.
And I also think it's heartbreaking that, going back to last season, Utah's still yet to win a Big 12 game at Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Yeah, good point.
Let that sink in, right? Did at any point, once the move was announced that Utah was heading over to the Big 12, at any point did that ever come across your mind that Utah was going to be 0-5 in Big 12 play at home?
Given, the environment that we saw today and the reputation that Utah has and their home field advantage, I would say that's pretty ridiculous. They did beat Baylor though, right?
Yes, however, that was not a conference game.
Oh, you're right. Okay,
That was not
technicality,
not a conference game. They did win that game against Baylor, so I mean, if we want to put a little asterisk next to it and say a 1-5, but then I guess so be it. But in Big 12 play, in conference play, you're still yet to find a win at home, and I thought with the impressive home record that Utah had in in Pac-12 play, never did I think that would become a reality for Utah. But here we are after this Texas Tech loss, and Utah's still looking for a conference win at home.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. And it's hard because last year is what last year was. And
right.
There's no changing that. And this is the first Big 12 game of the season. But to come out and look this poor, I think, is the worrying thing. And then, you point out that fact, and it's like, man, is that true? That's pretty crazy. So we'll see. I mean, Utah's on the road next week, so they're going to have some time before their next home game against Arizona State in a couple weeks. But you don't have a Big 12 home win yet.
That's crazy. That's crazy to think about, man.
All right, let's go ahead and hear from Kyle Whittingham. He is done at the podium. We've got a lot of people helping us out, sending us audio. So I want to get to that. I want to hear some of his comments, hear what he had to say. Still waiting on the player sound that is making its way over. But, I would imagine that Kyle Whittingham was not a happy person after this game. I would imagine he had a lot of things to say at halftime. And after a loss like this, after a loss looking this bad, what would you say if you were Kyle Whittingham?
Oh man, if I was Kyle Whittingham, of course, I'd have to do something to not knock Devin's confidence, right? It's get the point across and let the guys know that yes, tonight's offensive performance was bad, but it's something that you can learn from. It's something that you can grow from, and do your best to not knock Devin Dampier's confidence, because I think that's the last thing Utah fans want and Utah fans need right now is to have a quarterback with no confidence heading into conference play.
All right. Kyle Whittingham's sound is here and it is ready. So let's hear what Coach Witt had to say.
Start off by saying that was a really good football team we played. Give them a lot of credit. They've really assembled themselves a really good roster. And like I said, they're talented, physical. It was a good football team that we faced. We didn't do anything to help our own cause, particularly on offense. First quarter was a disaster. 2 turnovers with the fumbles, another turnover on downs, 4th and 1. You got to convert that. Touchdown called back because of a penalty. So really didn't get into a rhythm on offense essentially the whole morning, afternoon. Nice 2-minute drill in the first half, got us a field goal. And then we had the 1 touchdown drive in the second half, but other than that, we didn't play, like I said, with much rhythm or much continuity. Ran the ball very poorly, way under 100 yards if you take away the garbage yards that happened, those last 3 or 4 plays. And so that was disappointing. I never would have believed if you would have said we were going to lose the line of scrimmage. Never would have believed that in a million years. But we did. We didn't win the line of scrimmage. Defense played lights out for 3.5 quarters, and then it went from 13 to 34 in the blink of an eye. And it can't happen. I mean, it just can't happen. You got to finish games, and you got to keep keep your poise and keep doing the things that you were doing the first 3.5 quarters. We can't let things get away from us like that in the fourth quarter. And kind of reminiscent of last year when we had chances to put people away in the fourth quarter and win a game with 1 stop, and just couldn't do it. So we got to continue to look hard at that. Looking for positives. I thought our punter punted the ball very well. He did a good job. Came up with a couple takeaways on defense. Noah Benny, exceptional interception in the end zone, and then we had the other one on the tip ball. but we didn't play the run exceptionally well either. And like I said, for us to lose the line of scrimmage is that doesn't happen very often, but it certainly happened today. So we've got to regroup now. We got a tough road trip to West Virginia. We're playing well. Rich Rodriguez is a great football coach, and they'll be ready for us. There's no doubt about that. East Coast trip, so we got to leave a day early next week, and so it'll be a little different schedule, but that's neither here nor there really. But like I said, the bottom line, we lost the turnover margin 4-2, and again didn't convert on the fourth down and short. It seemed like we battled field position all game. We were in tough field position. We could never tilt the field back our way because we couldn't make enough first downs on offense. We couldn't move the chains enough to give our defense some breathing room, and so it seems like they had their back to the wall a good portion of the game. But they won the game. We got to review the film, fix our deficiencies, and get back at it come Monday. I mean, you can't sit around and feel sorry for yourself. You just got to get back at it and go to work and try to figure out how to beat the next team. So, questions?
Kyle, you mentioned that the offense just struggled to get into a rhythm all game. Do you feel like that was sort of a play calling thing, or were the turnovers just too hard to overcome?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Certainly the turnovers, you only get about 10 or 11 possessions a game on average. Some games are more, and which is about three or four and a quarter max, 2 to 4 and a quarter. And if you turn it over twice and turn it over a third time on downs, that doesn't help your cause. Have to take a look at the film and see why we didn't win the line of scrimmage. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't have a great answer right now. We just didn't play up to our usual standards up front.
Kyle, on both of the scoring drives, you guys went up-tempo a little bit. Was there ever any consideration to maybe go up-tempo for the rest of the game?
That's up to Jason. It's his offense, and you're right in the respect that we did have success doing that, those two drives, and maybe in hindsight we should have. I mean, that's a good thought.
When it comes to the slow starts, this has kind of happened a little bit in Wyoming, maybe a little bit in Cal Poly. Is there any particular reason why you think that this team is starting slow and not getting into that rhythm?
No, don't have a good answer on that either. You obviously judge the game in its entirety, but you're right. We have seemed to come out of the gates with not a lot of production.
How did things change when their backup quarterback, Will Howard, came in?
Not a lot. I mean, the new kid came in and did a good job, and the Q run game dose went higher, and he did a nice job running the football and took care of the ball. And so, there wasn't a lot of drop-off. He was very productive.
Coach, is there a strong level of trust in Devin to execute what he needs to in the vertical passing game?
Yeah, absolutely. And Devin, I'm sure he's disappointed today, like everybody else. But he's a competitor, and he's a great athlete, and he's a guy that'll come back. My guess is he'll be ready and really good next week.
Where do you feel like this offense needs to improve most to get back on track?
Well, based on today, take care of the football. You cannot turn the ball over 4 times. You turn the ball over 4 times, your chances of winning are 15%. The only thing that would fix that is if your defense took it away 4 or 5 times, in the same game, and so you just can't. I mean, that's excessive turnovers. That's you'll turn it over nearly 50 times in the year if you do that. So that is the biggest problem today. If you want to say what is the biggest problem, turnovers. Second biggest problem, not controlling the line of scrimmage.
Coach, on that touchdown that got called back to Jackson Benning, was there, or just from your perspective, was there a miscommunication maybe on the ineligible offensive lineman?
Yeah, lineman didn't hear the entire call, and didn't realize that it was a RPO or play action, and it was the correct call by the ref. I mean, he was 8 yards downfield. He was way down there. So yes, miscommunication. To answer your question.
Kyle, you have a lot of new players, a lot of new leaders on this team. This is the first time they faced adversity. Are you curious to see how they respond after something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. And my guess is they'll answer the bell, but we'll find out. And the locker room was good. There are a lot of upset people in that locker room, and it hurts, and it should. This is a hard-working team, and they prepared well. We had a really good week of practice, again, we just, for whatever reason, we're in a funk on offense today and could not get into a rhythm.
Coach, a big bright spot on defense was Nate Ritchie. Can you speak to his game today?
Yeah, he was all over the field and did a nice job. Still got to clean up some tackles. There were some missed tackles that we got to continue to work with him on. But he is a fierce competitor and he's instinctive. He's always around the ball. And the nature of his position, that position in our defense is going to make a lot of tackles. Just it's inherent with the position. But he's a tough guy and a really good player.
Coach, you've mentioned in the past that you want to get more wide receivers involved.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Davis was the only wide receiver that caught a pass, or true wide receiver, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Just has that, I guess, limited the efficiency of the offense, not having a consistent threat there at that position?
For sure, and we got to find a way to get a threat at that position. And you're right, we didn't get much involvement with the wideouts today. But you got to get open. I mean, we got to. You got to get open to get the ball, and so we got to do a better job of coaching them to help them to get open.
Coach, on that second drive of the game, when you got stopped on fourth down, Nakari looked like he may have gotten the first. Was it a decision to not challenge, or
I was going to challenge it, and I went to the ref to say we want to challenge. He says replay had already confirmed, because they're looking at every play, and so if they've already confirmed it, because it was in the ref's ear right there, because I saw the same thing everyone else did on the board, and he said, Coach, don't waste your challenge. Replay has already confirmed the call, and you'll just get the same answer, that confirmed. So, but yeah, that was in my mind a challenge. But when I got that information, that obviously would have been a bad decision to do that.
All right, that'll wrap us up.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Good game to the last 8 minutes. Yep.
There you go. That is Kyle Whittingham today after the team's 34-10 loss to Texas Tech. And obviously a little dejected, I guess you could say. I did enjoy his last answer. Good game to the last 8 minutes. Couple interesting tidbits, though, from that post game, Alex. I think the biggest one, the quote that stood out to me, he said, never would have believed that we'd lose the line of scrimmage. And I think that was very clear. They lost the line of scrimmage on both sides, I think is fair.
That's probably the thing that stood out the most to me as well, is the fact that, I mean, we talked about it too in the pregame show, right? Utah needed to win the line of scrimmage and they needed to impose their physicality in the line of scrimmage. But Texas Tech, again, massive credit to that defensive line for the Red Raiders, because they came and they balled out, and Utah's offensive line was just never really able to get a good enough push to establish a good enough run game. And ultimately, I think that's why the final score is the way that it is because Utah wasn't able to get anything going in the rushing game.
It was encouraging to hear Jackson Benny shouted out. Unfortunately, Whittingham got him mixed up with his older brother. Who was it? Noah Benny played a couple years ago for Utah, and Witt said, yeah, congrats to Noah Benny getting a pick.
Also, he was asked about the positives in this game, and he mentioned the punter.
Yeah, that's tough.
Not good.
And you know what? The punter didn't. There was the one punt where he was from like the 50-yard line, and he barely pinned him on like the 19 or 18. It was like a 32-yard net punt.
Yeah,
like that's all around. I don't think there was a bright spot. I mean, Curtis hit a field goal, and that was nice. And other than that,
after he missed.
After he had missed, I mean, he missed a long one. It was way off, but yeah, he got another chance to hit it, and he did. So rough game all around to open conference play for Utah. Got a lot of people chiming in the comment section. We love getting response. Unfortunately, most of the response is not positive. A lot of people are just, chiming in saying, yeah, Utah's overrated. Yeah, Utah, not who we thought they were. A lot of people pointing out Texas Tech and how good they were. James Hendricks specifically said Tech just dominated when it came to third downs and won the turnover battle 5-2. Great game. Utah will be back. And I think that would be the hope, right? Like, again, as we talked about earlier, this does not end your season by any means. You've got 8 games left on the schedule to bounce back and prove that you are still one of the top teams in the country, or in the Big 12, right. The conference. And the hope is that, you get another shot at these guys in the Big 12 championship. That would be awesome.
I think that would be best case scenario for Utah after a disappointing loss, after a hard loss at home.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break, and then coming up next from the other side of the break, we'll hear from the players. Curious to hear what they had to say. I know Devin Dampier was at the podium. We'll let you hear from the players' post-game press conference. Coming up next, we'll be back in about 3 minutes. Stay with us. It's the Ute Post-Game Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's the Ute Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Alex, I'm smiling. Alex Napoles and Christian Esparza, by the way. Alex, I'm smiling because it seems like Texas Tech fans have infiltrated the postgame show. Seen some comments in the section, so it's always nice to see some back and forth there. We appreciate, we appreciate the insight. We appreciate the listens, and the people chiming in. And I think that's the best part about this, is to get the reaction from both sides. I think that's a lot of fun. Before we get to the postgame player sound, one more point that I want to touch on from Kyle Whittingham and what he said in his press conference. In case you missed it, we'll have that posted online. When asked about not going more up tempo, he said, "That's up to Jason. It's his offense. In hindsight, we maybe should have done it more," because they were asked, they had the touchdown drive, and the difference there on that drive where they did score a touchdown, they were going more up tempo, but we didn't really see that the rest of the game. So any thoughts there about, I don't want to say throwing Jason back under the bus, but kind of almost saying, I wish we would have went more up tempo.
Yes, and that's what it sounds like. But he brings up a good point. Hindsight is 2020. Obviously, after the fact, you realize that the up tempo worked a lot better than what Utah was doing throughout the course of that first half.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll see that more against West Virginia, right? Maybe we'll see more of that down the line for Utah. We talked about there not being many bright spots in this one, but I think if we have to pick out some positives for the offense, it has to be that drive for the Dallin Bentley 44-yard catch, the big play from the tight end, and then you go up tempo, and then the ball ends with a Wayshawn Parker touchdown. And so I think that's something. That's one of the small bright spots that I think Utah can look at and say, this is what we want to build upon. That drive felt a lot more Devin Dampier-esque, right, than all the other drives that we saw prior to. That felt more like the Utah offense that we saw earlier in the season versus the one that we saw today against Texas Tech.
Yeah, there were, of course, it seems like when the ball is thrown to Dallin Bentley, good things happen. And of course, it's hard to get the ball to one player over and over again, especially if he's your only guy consistently making plays. But I love what I've seen from Dallin Bentley so far this season. And I'm sure that Dampier does. I'm sure that Kyle Whittingham does. I'm sure that Jason Beck does. So seems like he is going to be the main receiving threat. I know Ryan Davis has had some big moments as well, but routinely it's Dallin Bentley making the big plays when they need it. I do want to get to the post-game player sound, though. We have that sent in. So this is Devin Dampier, Nate Ritchie, and Teo Johnson. They just wrapped up at the podium moments ago. Let's get down there and hear what they had to say.
Devin, what kind of happened today where the offense just couldn't get into a rhythm?
Yeah, I think we just didn't execute too well today. Yeah.
What were your impressions of Texas Tech's defense, and what did they do to make things tough for you?
Yeah, we knew they were a very good defense coming in. I thought they very much played like it. Just a well-coached team. They definitely came out on top today. Hopefully we'll see them again later.
How difficult was it to overcome after the fumbles and then the big pass play gets called back? Does that put you in a position where you press a little bit?
We put ourselves in some tough situations. You try to minimize the self mistakes. You consider those more self mistakes than them making plays. So that's just something we want to control a lot better going into these next following weeks.
Devin, obviously back-to-back games of the offense just couldn't find its footing in the first half. Have you guys been able to kind of pinpoint what's going wrong there, just in the slow starts in the first half?
I think the biggest thing is just staying efficient, putting ourselves in a lot of third and longs. Those are hard to overcome in football. We try to stay as efficient as possible.
Devin, this is the first time you guys are going to have to face this kind of adversity coming off something like this. As a leader, what do you say to your group?
Yeah, keep the confidence up. We've been doing this all spring, all fall. It hurts me that, we didn't show that today, what we were capable of doing. But we know as a team, we know what our potential is. No need for that confidence to leave. We'll be back.
Nate, on defense, was there a different look that Will Hammond brought when he came into the game? What was it that they were doing that got them going in the second half there?
They just made plays and we didn't. That's it. Good offense. We got to make more plays.
For Nate and Teo, obviously the offense scored. You guys were within 3. Just what happened there at the end defensively that, the breakdowns and 3 touchdowns and all that?
Yeah, just like you said, breakdowns, a lot of things that we can control, missed tackles, missed assignments, everything that we can control. They didn't do anything that was special or anything. It's just a lot on us.
Devin, what sort of improvements need to be made to get more out of the passing game, specifically downfield?
It's somewhat a general question. Just be more on time. I think we have a great O-line. They're going to hold up for us. My connection to the receivers just needs to be a lot more efficient and a lot more cleaner.
All right, that'll wrap us up.
Thank you.
There you go. That was Devin Dampier and safeties Teo Johnson and Nate Ritchie at the podium. Boiled it down, I didn't know if it was Richie or Johnson, but he said at the end of the day they made plays and we didn't. And I think that's what it boils down to on the defensive side. I know that they held strong for 3.5 quarters. I know that it was 10-13 at one point, but the hard part is Utah scored that touchdown to make it a close game, and then the defense gave up a 30-yard run, a 19-yard pass, and a 24-yard pass on literally the next drive after. So
Yeah.
I know that it's hard when Utah's offense had not been producing up to that point, but you finally get the offense to click, and it's just that much of a crusher when the offense clicks, the defense falls apart right then. So that was tough. And, Tech did make incredible plays. Again, as I mentioned earlier, their receivers made some really great catches. Will Hammond came in and made some nice throws, made some nice plays with his feet. But Utah's defense today, they struggled. The offense struggled. It was just a struggle all over.
Struggle all over. Again, massive credit to Texas Tech. They I think now fortify themselves as the team to beat in the Big 12, and it'll be interesting to see how they continue, if they can continue to be as dominant as they were on defense tonight or today against Utah. One of the things that stood out to me from that press conference, though, Christian, was Devin Dampier taking the blame for the offense and talking about the timing needs to be better and talking about we'll be back. And again, I think that's something for Utah fans to, again, not hit the panic button, keep that confidence in Devin Dampier as your quarterback, because right now you want a guy with confidence heading into, as you head down the stretch in Big 12 play. I'm sure Devin Dampier will be working on it all week with his receivers, and we'll see how it looks against West Virginia.
You get a tough road game against West Virginia next week, but it's not impossible. It's a good test, but it's a very winnable game for Utah. And then you have a bye week to sort out this offense, and they need it. Want to get to some comments real quick. KC's Fantastic Voyages comes in. Unfortunately, they limited our third down abilities, plain and simple. Good D, though, before the last 10 minutes. And, yeah, the fourth down disparity, touched on that earlier. Utah was like 4 of 14.
Yep.
But, we talk about the offensive struggles that need to get ironed out, and it felt bad. But as you look back on the drive chart, this was Utah's offense in the first half. Punt, turnover on downs, fumble, punt, interception, and then a field goal to close the half. That's almost exactly the same as what happened against Wyoming last week. So clearly through the first 4 weeks, and Whittingham was asked about it as well. Dampier was asked about it. Offense struggling to come out in the first half. So that is the issue that needs to be fixed, because as we mentioned, if you figure out the offense, we know the defense is good enough. They just can't carry the team through 4 quarters, right? So fix that offense, figure out your first half offense, and you should start to see the wins coming for Utah.
And that's something that I think everyone's going to be looking at as they head into that West Virginia game, is how quickly that offense can start. Because again, if you can go on the road to West Virginia, get a quick start, get some confidence under your feet, potentially we'll see Utah return to the offense that we saw, in that second half against Wyoming and against UCLA, versus the one that we saw in the first half of Wyoming, and of course today against Texas Tech.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts before we wrap up?
No, not really. I think, again, just don't hit the panic button. There's still plenty of football left to be played for Utah and Utah fans. No need to hit the panic button yet. If Utah can go into West Virginia and pick off a win, I think that they'll be back on track.
We got Jesse Reed, Tech alumni, happy for the win, and Utah showed heart. In my honest opinion, Tech fans show some class. Don't be rude online. No, you know what, Alex? I love your parting thoughts. I think, again, to reiterate, it really sucks to have Big Fox in town, to have all the attention on you nationally, and it's a huge game, and everybody knows that, and Kyle Whittingham's record when Big Noon comes to town, yada, yada, yada. It sucks to lose that game, and it feels like you really let a massive opportunity slip through your fingers when you kind of did. But when you take some time to reflect on it, when you step back a little bit, you don't want to live and die by every immediate reaction and emotion. The fact of the matter is you still have, 8 games left to play.
Yeah.
And the season is not over with this one loss.
Exactly. You can't get caught up in this performance. Obviously, watch the film, learn from the mistakes, figure out, like Devin Dampier said, figure out the timing with your wide receivers, and take a next step in that offense. You can't dwell on this performance, because if you dwell on this performance, right, it's still early in conference play. You go on the road to West Virginia, you fall on that one, then it's a whole different conversation, right? It's a great opportunity to grow and learn.
Yep. At West Virginia next week, 1:30 kick, and then a bye for the Utes before they welcome Arizona State back home. So definitely, again, West Virginia, I think, tough opponent, but definitely a winnable game. And I think that's a really good team to kind of figure out your offense against. So we'll see what the Utes look like next weekend. Again, you can join Alex Napoles and I, myself, Christian Esparza, along with Alex Curie, every Saturday morning from 10 to noon for College Football Saturday. And then we are here every game with the Ute post-game show, breaking everything down. So you got
real quick before we get out of here and we wrap this up. First of all, phenomenal to meet a lot of you people this morning. At the tailgate. Thank you guys for stopping by. Thanks for coming and taking all the donuts and taking the burritos. And a big shout out to Sean, who's been up since 5 a.m. making the magic happen back in the studio. Thank you, Sean Croshaw, for producing for us, man.
Yeah, Sean produced the morning show for us. Sean was on the tracks before we even got started. And then Sean helps deliver, of course, all the highlights and the post-game audio to us. So love having Sean back in the booth. For Alex Napoles, I'm Christian Esparza. Thanks for tuning in. This was the Ute post-game show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.